We are officially a week away from the release of The Last of Us show on HBO. Now, this is personally my most anticipated thing for this entire year, whether it's movies, TV, games, whatever entertainment media that you want me to discuss. The Last of Us is my most anticipated thing to watch and just in general consume. And I say that as a massive Last of Us fan. The video game is personally my favorite video game of all time. Today's video, we're going to be going down and talking about my top 10 most important things that must be in The Last of Us show, at least personally for me. Some of these are small, some of them are obvious, but I definitely want to hear your guys' thoughts down below in the comment section. How excited are you for the show? And just make sure to hit that like and subscribe button because we will be covering The Last of Us every single week on this channel right after the episode goes up. I'm going to put up a review and then there might even be a live stream. We will see, but other than that, let's get to this. At my number 10, it's about new characters and setting up the future. Clearly with The Last of Us, we do have a Last of Us Part 2, and a lot of people's issues with that is just certain things that didn't feel set up in the first game. Now, personally for me, I don't have that issue. I absolutely love The Last of Us Part 2, but I think for some of those fans who did feel a little bit betrayed by that second game, I think there needs to be a little bit more build up to that structure, and from our understanding, there are a couple new characters already appearing in The Last of Us show, so I'm curious to see the development that gives, as well as what could be set up for the future, specifically with a doctor character towards the end. The other thing I want to also add in there is that I actually kind of hope that there will be an in-between season from Last of Us 1 and 2, specifically in some of the flashback sequences that we see in The Last of Us Part 2. I think that might actually help the story structure overall, or in general might even be some new ideas that Neil Druckmann wanted to include in The Last of Us Part 2 but was not able to. There was talks about them having a whole first act expansion before the events that had happened in The Last of Us Part 2 that really take off that story, but overall, that's what I want to see as well. And at my number 9 is little minor changes or just in general surprises for us who have already played the games. Now, this is something that I think we were anticipating. I think they've even talked about, but for me, while I'm especially excited to see the attention to detail and what exactly is the same from the games or what is different, I hope we do get smaller little changes to whatever you need to do, and maybe even add on to certain segments that needed those add-ons to maybe even flesh it out a little bit better. That's the thing about a lot of adaptations, is they either go right out of left field and do not take everything into consideration, or they stick too close to the source material and it can be a little bit boring at times. The Last of Us, I think, has one of those mediums that you can touch on and actually expand on little things, because specifically you don't want to see Joel and Ellie just walking around holding a bottle and throwing it to kind of distract a clicker 30 different times in the same show. At my number 8 is the growth between Joel and Ellie. Now, in the games, we clearly got that from actually experiencing it and playing it. In the show, that's what I'm hoping to get as well. You have two fabulous performers in here. I have no doubt in my mind that this is actually going to happen, but I have another part in this list that is going to tie into the same thing that I hopefully we do get. It's not just the main establishing moments from the game that actually further that out. And at my number 7, now this one is a spoiler for the video games and potentially the show, so if you haven't played the video games and you want to be surprised for the show, skip ahead to the next one. I'll have the time cards down below. But at my number 7 is the draft moment. Come on. That is one of the most subsequential, most important and subtle moments in all of The Last of Us overall, and just in general, we need those subtle moments like that. The giraffe moment for me is one of the most important, and it has to be there in the show, if not something at least to the level of it all. The beauty that you get to see in that is also just, again, one of the most touching sequences in all of gaming. My number 6 is of course going to be the score. Now, Gustavo Santaolalla is coming back from doing the games and also now is doing the show. That has to be there, right? That's one of the most inspiring, one of the most best scores in video games ever. And I'm happy to see that Gustavo is coming back, but I hope they don't rein it in. I really do hope they use his composure and everything that he creates for the show to really bring to life everything. And I also hope there are some new musical notes as well, because I think Gustavo is one of the most underrated composers out there. Now, my number 5 is the violence. Now, violence is key because I think Neil Druckmann talked about how they kind of toned back and only used it for certain reserved manners, and that's something that I actually hope that we do get to see, and I've been hoping that we get to see, because in the gameplay, again, when you play a game, you're actually having to go through sequences, and they have to give you sequences of course, gameplay and things to do, because or else the game can get boring. In this show, I hope that they really save that violence for the most important moments. I feel like if you use it too much, it's going to be too gratitude and be like too gory, and just in general, this is not an action story. This is more of a dramatic story with action that heightens the moments. And I think whether it's moments with characters towards the very end, or the Fireflies, or some of the other kind of raiders that you meet in a certain city. These are things that I hope to see and elevated, and I'm specifically really excited to see how Joel and Ellie tackle this, because knowing certain sequences that they get into that get very brutal, I do hope they keep that, and I hope they keep that level of brutality at least in there. Because if you get little levels of brutality like that, it can really play a piece into that very first Tomb Raider reboot game that we got a couple of years, I mean, it's been over a couple of years at this point, where she actually kills someone for the first time in there, and she actually reflects on that, and I think that's something that we do need to see at least in here. Number 4, The Last of Us might be a great dramatic story, but what it also carries is a fantastic element of horror. It is more of a horror drama than anything else than you would expect. There's a survival element to it all, and the clickers are absolutely terrifying with the sounds they make and the way that they move and turn. And I'm very excited to see how the clickers are created in here. Makeup artist who did the White Walkers from Game of Thrones is back to do this, so I think this is all going to be very exciting elements, and just from the little stuff that we've seen in the trailers, they all look phenomenal, specifically the bloater, so I'm very excited to see how they piece all of this together. At my number 3 is the expansion on Joel and Sarah. Now, I'm not going to get too much into this because it is heavy spoilers from the game, and I don't want you TV fans to, who have never experienced the game, to be spoiled in any sort of department. But Joel and Sarah are a very important piece to this entire story, and I actually do want expansion on both of their stories, specifically probably in the first episode is where we're going to get this. I think it would really add up and build the tension up to specifically those events that do happen and take Joel on his journey, and as at the same time, I want more expansions on just Joel and Ellie itself. Speaking of expansions, at my number 2 is expansions on every single side character. Playing the Last of Us game, when you do look at majority of the characters, they are pretty one note besides certain dialogue moments that you have with them. Bill, David, Tess, Marlene, whoever you want to discuss, a lot of these characters aren't really that fleshed out. You get the gist of them, but it really is Joel and Ellie's story, and when you're playing a game, that's okay because they're barely in it. I have a feeling with the show, though, they are going to be in the show a little bit longer than we would anticipate within the video game, and I think in that department we do need a little bit more development for these characters to actually really come to not just care about them, but also understand them as a full-on character. Maybe some changes might be made to each and every one of them, but these are characters that I hope to get expansions on in the show, so that way we can have more time with them, as well as if, when again, violence is happening on the screen, we do care for them. My number 1 thing that I think is the most important thing for The Last of Us to have is the smaller moments between Joel and Ellie. Now, I did mention that one moment at my number 7. Again, I don't want to mention it if you don't want spoilers for the show, but I really want these smaller moments between Joel and Ellie, and I think it's one of the most important pieces. When I play The Last of Us Part 1, or specifically The Last of Us Part 2, there's a lot of smaller moments in between the characters that really get to bond, between the violence, between all the drama, and it's just like little things like Ellie having a joke book and telling jokes to Joel and him not really getting along with it, but then eventually him wanting to hear those jokes, and the tension and the arguing, just the little subtle things in there that add to each and every moment, each and every scenario, each and every sequence. These are some of the best things that I've ever seen, and I really do hope they never take away or pull away from any of those, because I think it is, again, the most important piece of their journey, and I cannot wait for The Last of Us. Again, it is my most anticipated thing to see on HBO and just in general all of this year to consume. So thank you so much again for watching this, guys. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Comment down below your guys' thoughts. We will be talking about The Last of Us again every single Sunday when it premieres. I'm going to be putting up a review, and then probably about an hour after the episode premieres, we'll jump on a live stream or something of that nature, or maybe I'll be joining other people's channels, but I will for sure have some reviews, and we have a lot of content planned around The Last of Us. So thank you so much again for watching this, and of course, until next time, stay classy.